2001 was an incredibly wild year for the amusement park industry. We saw the birth of 8 new theme parks, including Disney's California Adventure and Bonfante Gardens in California, as well as Universal Studios Japan and Tokyo Disney Sea on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. 40 new roller coasters were built here in the United States alone. It was also the year we started America's Coaster Network as a coaster enthusiast website and forum. Has it really been that long?
Why are you so old?
In honor of our 20-year anniversary, we thought it would be fun to start a series of top coasters by year videos, starting with 2001. With far too many roller coasters to narrow down to a top 10, this is our Sweet 16 of best roller coasters that opened in 2001. These lists will rank the best coasters on how they operated at the time of their opening year. That is, if they became rougher or had modifications in later years, it won't play a role on how they are ranked on this list. When we said it was a wild year, we weren't kidding. Starting off the list is Technic Coaster at Legoland, California. The coaster was the second of 3 Wild Mouse coasters to open in California in 2001. Designed by Mack Rides, they took a different approach to the traditional Wild Mouse. After making a sharp turn off the lift hill, the coaster drops riders down a 50-foot drop before returning to the zigzag track you see on other Wild Mouse coasters. The cars are nicely themed and there's theming at the bottom of the first drop, but aside from that, the theming is rather minimal. There isn't anything terrible about the ride that's putting it at the bottom of this list. It's just that 2001 was a very strong year for new coasters. Landing at number 15 is Mulholland Madness at Disney's California Adventure Park. This Wild Mouse was also designed by Mack Rides, but has a more traditional design. It opened with the debut of what was Disney's newest theme park, and would be the first Wild Mouse coaster at a major theme park in California. The only other one being the now defunct Treetop Racers at Adventure City, a local theme park geared for children a few miles down the road from both Knott's Berry Farm and the Disneyland Resort. The theme of Mulholland Madness and atmosphere of Paradise Pier at DCA is what really makes this ride shine. It was themed after the famous Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles, a curvy 2-lane road from Hollywood to the shores of Malibu. Riders are taken on a cartoony journey past numerous billboards and through a giant road map of Mulholland Drive. While Mulholland Madness was eventually renamed Goofy Sky School in 2011, it's still a fun ride today and a welcome addition to SoCal. But there's a superior Wild Mouse from California that also made the list. Which takes us to Paramount's Great America, now California's Great America, and soon to be this. Psycho Mouse is easily the best of the 3 Wild Mouse coasters on our list. Designed by Aerodynamics, it was a departure from their large-scale Mega Loopers and Hypercoasters from the 1990s. Also, with new technology being used for the design and build, Psycho Mouse still has very smooth transitions between its many hairpin turns and hills. It's the Wild Mouse coaster every Wild Mouse coaster should be. There's nothing to complain about. Unfortunately, it was the last one Aero would build before filing for bankruptcy in December of the same year. Thankfully, the ride is still in operation along with the same models at Valley Fair and Michigan's Adventure. And we hope Psycho Mouse is relocated to another Cedar Fair park when they eventually close California's Great America. Number 13 is probably one of the lesser known coasters on this list. Quicksilver Express opened with the debut of Bonfante Gardens in Gilroy, California. The park is now aptly named Gilroy Gardens. It was designed by D.H. Morgan, and not counting Phantom's Revenge, was their second to last coaster. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was another mine train by Aerodynamics, but that's a very fair assumption given the similar track style and layout. 2 lift hills, 2 tunnels, and a journey through one of the prettiest landscaped and theme parks in America. The first half lulls you into a false sense of security with a series of gentle left and right curves leading up to that second lift hill. The second half is where things really pick up. The ride starts to feel a bit out of control as the speed of the train increases as it weaves its way down the hillside, passing through 2 tunnels before it's all over. While it may fall at number 13 on this list, it's still one of our favorite mine train coasters in the country. Sadly, number 12 is no longer with us. Cheetah at Wild Adventures was one of the last coasters designed by the infamous and now defunct wooden roller coaster company, Custom Coasters International. During the beginning of the pandemic, Wild Adventures closed temporarily, and when it reopened in June of 2020, Cheetah was listed as closed for the season. In January 2021, they announced it would be removed for new and exciting changes. A giga? No, I'm just kidding. Like with any aging wooden roller coaster, many enthusiasts had hoped the coaster would get the RMC treatment. Unfortunately, this didn't happen, and Wild Adventures is left with no original coasters. So, unless you're a fan of Vekoma boomerangs, SLCs, family inverted, and roller skaters, you're out of luck. Cheetah was on the smaller side of CCI coasters. With that said, it still had the longest drop on a wooden coaster in the state of Georgia, beating out Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia by a whole foot. From the moment you disengaged the lift hill, Cheetah was non-stop speed from its initial 90-foot tall drop through an out and back style layout of smaller hills and a figure 8 ending. Of course, in its later years, it became rather rough. It's a shame it wasn't taken better care of and met the fate it did. We're big fans of CCI and always hate to see their rides go away. For number 11, we have a pair of coasters. V2 Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Marine World, now Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, and Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Great America. We figured that since these two coasters were identical at opening, despite what Six Flags told the city of Vallejo, that we should rank them as one. Both rides start off with an LSM launch that propels riders forward and backwards to a maximum speed of 75 miles an hour, up a set of 186-foot tall vertical towers. The front tower is a twisted spiral, and the rear tower is straight with a holding brake at the top, which provides a nice jolt forward into your restraint as you face straight down. The Marine World location would be remodeled the following year after the city found out the true height of the coaster, which was 36 feet taller than the city ordinance of 150 feet. So the back tower would be reduced to a height of 150 feet, and the twisting front spike tilted 45 degrees, which would have us rank the coaster higher as it stands today, but since we're basing this list off how coasters were at opening, this is where it lands. 2001 was the year of Gib. No, not that Gib. This Gib. Taking the number 10 spot is Deja Vu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Taking the number 10 spot is Deja Vu at Six Flags Great America. Taking the number 10 spot is Deja Vu at Six Flags Over Georgia. In a stroke of genius, or is it crazy? The folks over at Vekoma took an inverted boomerang and made it bigger. Move over Invertigo and your lame 131-foot tall drops. This baby stands at 194 feet in the air, only a few feet away from being a hyper, or a HIB. They also tossed out those lame angled lifts and made them fully vertical. 90 degrees, baby! The trains reached a top speed of 65 miles an hour and inverted riders 6 times, 3 forward and 3 backward. You know, almost like Deja Vu. But with like almost any new prototype coaster, all 3 Deja Vus were plagued with problems. The first did not open at Six Flags Magic Mountain until August 25th, followed by the one at Six Flags Over Georgia on September 1st. And lastly, the Six Flags Great America location on October 7th, just in time for the seasonal park to close. Aside from the issues these coasters would have over the years, we really enjoyed them. It's a shame that all 3 Six Flags locations removed the coasters from their parks. At least Six Flags Great America's version is still around. It's now operating as Aftershock at Silverwood in Idaho. Our number 9 has the most beautiful setting of any coaster on this list. Wildfire at Silver Dollar City is perched on a hillside in the Ozark Mountains. It starts out differently than most B&M looping coasters. Instead of the rather typical curving first drop into a vertical loop, you take a flat left turn off the lift hill, which gives you a moment to take in absolutely breathtaking views, right before taking a straight drop into an Immelmann, which then leads into a vertical loop, followed by a cobra roll, bank curve, and a corkscrew, then a long upward turn into the final brakes. And while we love the ride for its unique layout and lovely environment, one thing that made it hard to rank was how hard I was stapled both times. Yes, stapled on a coaster with over-the-shoulder restraints. The ride ops gave me absolutely no room to move. So if there was airtime on the first drop or in other spots, I couldn't tell you. Had it not been for that experience, this coaster might have been ranked higher on this list. Number 8 is yet another pair of Vekoma coaster clones. I know, shocking. The company gets a lot of hate for their less than desirable clones of suspended looping coasters and boomerangs, but their flying coasters are really fun, which is why X-Flight from Six Flags Worlds of Adventure and Batwing at Six Flags America make up the middle of this list. Leaving the station and going up the lift hill on your back is a strange experience for sure. And it isn't until you're at the top of the 115-foot tall lift hill that the track twists and flips you face down. It's at this point you get to find out if your restraint works. You're then set down a 103-foot tall drop where you reach a top speed of 51 miles an hour. After an overbanked horseshoe element, the track twists again and riders are once again on their backs, which takes you into a very fun and unique vertical loop, which almost feels like a B&M pretzel loop. It's then back to being on your stomach as you navigate another turn, followed by 2 inline twists. The ride ends with an incredibly intense helix and a twist putting riders on their backs again as the train hits the final brakes. It's a model that we would have loved to see more from Vekoma. Sure, B&M came along and like always did it better, but even they had limited installations. Of course, Vekoma is back with a new flyer design, so hopefully that gets bought up by a bunch of parks. Good things can come in small packages. At number 7 is another CCI coaster, Cornball Express at Indiana Beach. The ride makes excellent use of limited space, with the track weaving through the CCI-built Hoosier Hurricane, and even uses part of its support structure in the process. It may be only 55 feet tall and 2,100 feet long, but it still contains everything CCI is known for. Great laterals, pops of airtime, and insane head choppers. It operates with trains built by Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters that use their buzz bar style restraints, which are a fan favorite because they lock in a fixed position that doesn't touch the rider's lap, providing space for some sweet airtime. And don't just take our word for it. The 2003 Golden Ticket Awards ranked Cornball Express at number 13 amongst all wooden coasters in the world. To us, Cornball Express is an incredibly underrated ride, even by today's standards. You can't really go wrong with a B&M invert, and while Talon at Dorney Park isn't amongst our favorite B&M inverts, it's still number 6 on this list. When it opened in 2001, it was marketed as the tallest and longest inverted coaster in the Northeast. It stands at 135 feet tall and reaches a maximum speed of 58 miles an hour. It'll invert you 4 times over the course of its 2-minute ride, starting with a signature curve drop into a vertical loop, followed by a 0G roll, Immelmann loop, and a flat spin. A highlight moment of the ride is towards the end when it swoops low for a steeply banked turn. You're so close to the ground it feels like you can reach out and touch it. From an element standpoint, the ride is great, but we do wish it had a bit more intensity like earlier B&M inverts like the Batman the Ride clones across the several Six Flags properties, Flight Deck at California's Great America, and even Raptor at Cedar Point, all which have snappier inversions and more positive G-forces. A lot of hate gets thrown at this coaster in the number 5 spot, but Giovanola really did an amazing job with Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. In what would be the company's 3rd and final coaster, Titan broke records. In Texas, at least. Not only did it become the state's tallest and fastest coaster, it was also the tallest hypercoaster in the world. Today, the only hypers that eclipse it are Thunder Dolphin in Tokyo and Orion at Kings Island. At the time of its opening, only Millennium Force at Cedar Point was taller and faster, when looking at full circuit coasters. Impressive, but I guess not everything is bigger in Texas. Titan is a near clone of Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It stands at a height of 245 feet and features a 255-foot drop into a 120-foot long tunnel. And I gotta say, that tunnel adds more than people might realize. It's one thing going through a tunnel towards the end of a ride like seen on other hypercoasters such as Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point, but it's another when you're looking down at this tiny opening from 245 feet in the air, getting closer and closer as you speed towards the tunnel, reaching a maximum speed of 85 miles an hour. Giovanola took from Goliath and then added an upward helix on Titan leading to its mid-course brake run. Which is awesome because it's quite forceful and thankfully hasn't been slowed down by any trims like the second helix is, which used to cause many riders to black out. The number 4 spot goes to Hypersonic XLC at King's Dominion. This S&S prototype was like nothing else the world had seen before. Sure, there were plenty of launch coasters that came before it, but none that came close to its insane acceleration. Using compressed air technology from their tower attractions, the train catapulted riders from 0 to 80 miles an hour in a blazing 1.8 seconds. Then up a 165-foot tall tower at 90 degrees, where they would crest a lift hill and experience a moment of some extreme injector airtime before falling back down to the ground at 90 degrees. It was then into a banked left turn, followed by a banked right turn, and then into a small hill before hitting the final brakes. The first half of the ride, including the launch and tower, came straight from the prototype called Thrust Air 2000, which was built at the S&S factory in Utah. A fun fact is that the coaster was originally supposed to be built at Great America in California, but those plans were scrapped. Like with pretty much any prototype, the ride suffered from constant downtime. Unfortunately, these issues never went away and the ride would have a short lifespan, closing in 2007. And would never be relocated or rebuilt elsewhere. Fortunately, Hypersonic XLC paved the way for S&S's only other thrust air coaster, still in operation today, Dododamba at Fujiku Highland in Japan, which is the world's 4th fastest coaster at almost 112 miles an hour. Breaking into the top 3 is what might be the most controversial B&M Hyper. People either have it ranked amongst the best or have it dead last. This coaster is Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. It's the start of what would become a somewhat standard formula for B&M Hypers. Unlike the two before it, 1999's Apollo's Chariot and Raging Bull, Nitro would ditch the traditional pre-drop after the lift hill in favor of the track going straight into a drop. And they would settle into out and back layouts for the most part. Standing at a height of 230 feet, it opened as the tallest coaster in the park, and with a top speed of 80 miles an hour, also the fastest in the park. Nitro is an L-shaped out and back layout with an upward helix in the middle that pulls a good amount of Gs. I mean, nothing like on Titan, which is probably good for the average rider. There are also nice moments of airtime which are made even better by the B&M clamshell restraints that are so well loved. The top hypercoaster of 2001 and the number 2 spot goes to Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood Park. And while the ride is technically a heavily modified steel Phantom, which opened in 1991, we believe the removal of the loops and addition of airtime hills is enough to justify this as a new for 2001 coaster. But I'm gonna be honest here. When we rode Phantom's Revenge for the first time in 2016, it didn't really live up to the hype. The insane airtime that we had heard about was mostly non-existent, but we were also having a poor experience at Kennywood overall. Busloads of school children made it feel like we were at a Chuck E. Cheese. On top of that, the park was running one train on almost all the coasters, creating long and slow lines. The same could be said for the food lines. Oh, and all the rides kept breaking down. So it's quite possible that we just weren't in a good mood when riding. Despite this, you can't deny the awesomeness of those first 2 drops, especially with the second one that drops through the structure of Thunderbolt. So we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt here, which is why we're ranking it as high as it is. The number 2 spot could have easily gone to Nitro, but we're big fans of the unique layout and incredible views as the track winds around the hilly terrain in the park. Finally, at number 1 is California Screamin' at Disney's California Adventure. I'm sure some of you are saying to yourself, what? How is this number 1? Over Phantom's Revenge and Nitro? But hear us out on this one. We'll be the first to admit that California Screamin' isn't the most intense coaster on this list. But it is by far the most fun coaster on this list. And isn't that why we ride coasters? To have fun? Like with Mulholland Madness, the area Paradise Pier adds so much to the ride. Gone now, but when the ride opened, there was a wave machine that would splash water up against the rocks next to the launch. There's also the onboard audio that goes along with every hill and turn. The ride starts off with a turn out of the station and under the Paradise Pier midway. It's here where you will wait for the launch. 0 to 55 miles an hour in 4 seconds. Mild by coaster enthusiast standards, but a lot of fun nonetheless. The launch takes you up a hill that provides a nice bit of floater airtime, followed by a series of right turns. And then it's up the lift hill, which is driven by LSM motors. Down another drop, which will give some nice airtime if you're in the back row. Then a quick turn to the right and a dip down into a vertical loop. The loop is mildly forceful. You'll then be taking another right turn. To your left is an incredible view of Paradise Pier. And then into a series of bunny hills that provide nice pops of airtime. With over-the-shoulder restraints, there was always room to float. Unfortunately, it's now trimmed and that airtime is greatly reduced. The ride finishes off with a left-turning helix which dips into the structure of the coaster, giving a nice long section of head choppers. And a cool stat for coaster nerds is that it is the 8th longest coaster in the world at 6,072 feet. Alright, this concludes our list of top 16 coasters of 2001. Some of the rankings might be controversial, but we're not all going to have the same opinion. With that said, we're very interested in knowing which coasters from 2001 you think are the best. Please let us know which rankings you agree with or don't agree with by leaving a comment down below. Also, if you're a fan of this type of content, please consider giving this video a like and our channel a sub. And as always, thank you for watching.